Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Can you all hear me loud and clear? Anyway, thank you all for joining us in this year's final installment of Scholarship Guide webinar series. And I hope that for those who have participated in our past few webinars, you are able to pick up something that will help you improve yourself and get a better and clearer idea of what to do in the near future, career-wise. So for those who are no stranger to our webinar series, you probably have attended our next speaker's webinar before. But for those who are unfamiliar with David, let me just share a little bit about David before inviting him to take over and start with his webinar. So David Fay started as a copywriter, winning awards in New York, London, Hong Kong, and Singapore for works on Carrier, Cold Storage, Durex, and Nissan. He learned his trade at American, English, French, Southeast Asian, and Japanese agencies, growing from creative to client servicing, strategic planning, and agency management. Campaigns he has led include rebranding SGX and Singapore Polytechnic, Pantai Hospitals in Malaysia, Valentine's Whiskey's entry to China, Imer's lingerie entry to Singapore, and development of the Kofu brand. He served on the Association of Accredited Advertising Agencies, or known as 4As, Executive Committee, and as a panel judge for Singapore Media Awards in 2010 and 2011. Today, David heads corporate communications at Centurion Corporation Limited, managing brand and communications for Westlight and Dwell Student Living across the UK, US, Australia, Korea, China, Malaysia, and Singapore. So without further ado, let's welcome David to take over and share with us how you can say I love you without good English.
Hi, everyone. Let me start by sharing my screen. Thank you, everyone, for joining me today. I understand this would be holiday time for everyone, getting ready for Christmas and the New Year. And for many of you, possibly at the stage of deciding what to do next, which university you want to apply for, where you want to go and study, and which scholarship you want to apply for as well. Okay, today's session, I'm going to cover what might seem like a very basic topic, which is communication, how to create clear, convincing communication. And a lot of us think that it takes good English, good language skills in order to communicate well. That may be true, that is true to some extent. If you read my introduction for today's session, you will understand that actually language is not the most important thing in clear, convincing communication. Okay, and in the next half an hour, 40 minutes, I'll share with you some tips on what is really important in communication and how to plan and craft your communication in a way that helps you get results. Yeah. Oh, why is it not shutting down? Okay, great. Now, there are 4 key elements in communication, all right? And this is something very important for us to understand. The main start of the communication is me, the sender of the message, or the marketeer in marketing communications. I'm the start of the message, right? And then there's a message I want to send, and there's a receiver I want to receive the message and understand the message. And hopefully he or she is convinced by my message to react and do something I want him or her to do, all right? The medium is how I deliver it, whether I deliver it in an email, I deliver it in a presentation like today, or I present it in a WhatsApp note for that matter, right? But It's not the language. It starts with the message and the receiver. Okay. For example, if I wanted to order a cup of coffee in a coffee shop, right? Very different words and message I will send versus if I want to order a coffee in a Starbucks or in a high-end Japanese coffee outlet, right? So what might be kopi C in a coffee shop might become a flat white in a Starbucks, right? Okay, or cafe au lait in a Parisian cafe. Close to the same thing, not exactly, but the words you would use to deliver that order or that message would be very different. You say coffee au lait to your auntie at the coffee shop, she's gonna look at you like as though you're a spaceman, right? Okay, so the sender is one thing, but who is receiving the message in order to translate the message correctly? Now, then if you're in marketing and you need to send a message to not one person, but a whole community, a whole target audience of hundreds or thousands or even millions of consumers, the way you send a message and the media through which you send a message would be very different. Now, in my previous sharing, I also went into a bit of detail about the different kinds of media that can work for different message receivers, target audiences. But that's another topic. Just helpful for you to understand that when you look at media, you have broad media, narrow media, and direct media. And broad media might include things like newspapers, TV, billboards, or out-of-home media, as we call it. Whereas narrow media might be radio, posters, and direct media might be direct mailers or call centers, or point of sale material inside the shop, right? But every traditional or offline media has its own digital and online version. The newspaper would have a news website. TV now is movie on demand or video on demand. You've got influencers, and the whole range of media becomes available for you. But today, I won't focus so much on the medium. I'll focus very much on the sender, receiver, and the message. Now, I'm going to jump straight into it. I don't need to have good English to tell my wife I love her. In fact, if I only tell her the 3 words, I love you, she's not going to believe me. She needs to see it in action, right? Okay. But there are 5 simple hacks you can remember in terms of planning and crafting your communication. Okay. Now, the most common thing people hear us say is, can you think before you open your mouth, right? And I have friends and family members who sometimes speak without thinking, right? And then they say things they regret later, right? And in writing and communicating, this is the first most important thing. Think before you open your Word document, okay? Or think before you open your email template. The second hack is put on her shoes. I'll explain that later. Not necessarily Christian Louboutin. It can be Charles and Keith, but I'll share more about that later. Head or heart, you're talking to someone. Sometimes reason and rationale alone is not enough. And many marketers make the mistake of only trying to be reasonable, rational, when actually most decisions are made in the heart, not in the head, right? Then the 4th tip is to cut and craft. And I'll run you through some examples of cutting and crafting. And then the last part, the last hack is read it again, again, and again, and again. Okay, now let me go through one by one what I mean. Very often when you start planning a message or communication, okay, what you do not want to do, what you should not do, is start writing straight away. Okay, I will always advise someone to start by planning what you want to write. Okay, first of all, you need to be clear to yourself. What is your key message? Here's an important tip. In every communication, there are actually three very important parts in your message. The first part is what I call the critical headline, or what must get through. If someone doesn't read your whole message and only reads the first line or the headline or the first paragraph only, what do you want this person to know? Or if it's a very long letter, after reading the whole long letter, what do you want this person to remember? And usually one, maximum 2 points you want that person to remember. The second part of an important message in planning your message is, what is the reason to believe? Okay, marketeers, advertisers call this the RTB, short form, RTB, reason to believe. What are the reasons this person would believe your main message? So if I want to tell someone I'm the best chef in the world, what is the reason to believe it? I've won Michelin awards, my restaurant is always full, you have to book your reservation 3 months in advance, all of this. But the net is, the main message is, best chef in the world, must try. Okay, but the rest are reasons to believe. Then the third most important part of the message, what is the reaction you want that person to have? What is the thing you want this person to do? Okay, and this is what you call the CTA, call to action, right? At the end of it. And in the restaurant example I told you, if I'm the best chef in the world, and the reason to believe that is I'm a Michelin award recipient and my restaurant's always full, book in advance, then the reaction desired, the call to action is make your reservation today, right? For example. Coming back to my wife and why I love her, the key message if I want to propose to her is, darling, will you marry me, please? The supporting details could be, because I'll love you till the day I die, I'll never have another woman, I'll give you the life you want, maybe let's queue up at the Chanel shop or whatever, right? The supporting details, those support the main message. But the reaction desired would be for her to say, I do, right? So you've got to understand that your message has these key elements, and you've got to plan your flow. What do you want to say first? What do you want to say second? Is it convincing? And then after that, think about what medium to send it in, right? Now, if I want my wife to pick up the kids from school, a WhatsApp message is fine, right? But if I want her to remember our anniversary and set her time aside for it, I think a WhatsApp message will probably tell her I don't really care, right? So think before you open your Word document, think before you decide what is your message, how you send your message. Map out your message, plan it. Then when you look at it, even if it's just bullet points on a table napkin, right? What is it convincing? If you yourself read your message, is it convincing? So this is most important tip number one. If it's a very important letter you want to write, if it's a application to a scholarship and you want that university or that organization to pick up your application and look at it differently, what are the things you need to say to that person? Yeah, and then map it out. Okay. Now the second important thing is the message receiver. I shared earlier that there are 4 important parts in any communication, right? There's you, the sender of the message. There's the message itself, and you've got to plan it out. There's the medium, how do you deliver the message? And then there's the receiver. In a sense, the most important part of the message is the receiver. Now, let me share with you something that in the advertising business or advertising world, we often joke about, but it's an important thing to do, right? I'm going to share a video with you. This is from an old movie, okay? I'm not sure if any of you millennials know this guy, Mel Gibson, okay? Now, there was this movie he starred in, and I'll let you watch the video, and then I'll share with you what this movie is.
Area. Straight ahead. Yes. Yeah. Feels kind of nice, yeah. I don't know why women complain about waxing their legs. In one smooth motion, yank the strip quickly in the opposite direction of the hair growth. And no, that'd be north. And 1, 2, 3. Ow! Oh! 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 Geez.
Have any of you seen this movie or seen this scene from a movie before? Okay, it's from a movie called What Women Want. And in this movie, Mel Gibson plays an advertising man. And one of his jobs that he had to do was write a TV commercial or write an advertisement to sell a hair wax product. I think today very few people do hair wax or wax their hair anymore, right? It's all IPL, right? Photolight and laser it out or have a president and pluck it out or whatever. But waxing is something that used to be done. But the story here is he's a guy, he would never wax his own legs, but in order to write an ad or write a TV commercial to sell a hair wax product, he tried the product for himself, okay? The same theory as if I'm gonna sell a BMW car or write an ad for a BMW, it helps that I test drive the car, I know what it's like, I enjoy what it's like. And in the same theory, if you're gonna write a communication or a message to someone, it helps to know what this person is like, what this person is thinking about, what your target audience wants to know about the product. Okay, one of the most commonly heard issues is from customers or from clients is that you don't understand me and you keep telling me things that are not important to me. And when you did something that you think about me, you never listen to me and all that, right? And so it becomes important when you're writing to that person that always bear in mind, what is that person looking for? What is important to that person? So in the first step, if you have mapped out your message, if you have planned what is the headline, the key message, what is the reason to believe, and then what is the action you want that person to have after reading your communication, look at that whole sequence of message again and ask yourself, does it address the questions that the target audience have in their minds? Does it address their concerns, their needs? And would it convince them and attract the desired response? And that's why it's always important as a marketer or in any communication to understand. To come back to my same example of coffee. If I was ordering, I want a flat white, and if I'm in a coffee shop, if I say, give me cafe au lait, that's never going to be understood, right? It's got to be kopi C, all right? Okay. Now, versus if I went to a French cafe and ordered a kopi C, they would look at me and wonder where I'm from. So it's very much the target audience you've got to think about and what they understand, what they care about, how would they respond. The next tip I wanted to share is to always bear in mind when you look at your target audience and the receiver of the message, is it the head or the heart you're talking to? Now, I want to share with you an example of this juice brand called Tropicana. This happened quite a while ago in the US, and it's one of those negative case studies of what not to do, okay? So Tropicana, this brand, is a market leader in the US and in other parts of the world. They're quite well known and a market leader as well. They've had this packaging, which for the longest time, all the customers know and recognize of an orange, an actual orange, with a straw stuck through it. And obviously, the message there is that Tropicana orange juice is the original real orange juice, right? And it's 100% pure and natural orange juice. as good as drinking the juice through a straw from the orange itself. That's the image that they sent. Then somewhere down the line, a new marketing director or a new agency said, let's refresh it, let's change it. Let's try and be very clever with it, right? And instead of showing the orange, they changed the packaging to show a cup of orange juice. And in the cap to the Tetra Pak, they decided to have this smart little thing. If you notice it, instead of the normal cap, they created an orange to be the cap. And the idea is quite smart, clever, creative. You squeeze the cap to open the thing, right? It's as good as squeezing the orange, and what you get inside is the juice, right? The other thing they did was they made the logo simpler, cleaner, neater, more stylish, right? And they took the 100% pure and natural instead of small and bottom. They made it big on the front of the pack like that. So if you just look at this, you think improvement, right? Refresh, modernize, quite clever little cap, you know, and the main message, 100% orange, is bigger, louder, clearer. Unfortunately, the week that they launched the new packaging, sales dropped 20%. And they were wondering why on earth that happened. They did all the research on the packaging before they launched it. And they lost 30 million in, you know, competitive sales volume before they corrected it. And at the end, they went back to the before version of the packaging or something very close to it. What went wrong? What they didn't recognize is this. They didn't recognize that they're actually a very leading brand and they have a space in their loyal consumers' hearts, okay? And the majority of the people buying the orange juice, whether it's your single young working woman or it's your you know, young working man or your housewife, right? Or your mother of household who's also a busy working woman, they recognize the packaging. They don't even look for the words anymore. They recognize the straw in the orange and they just look for that orange with a straw and they pick it off the shelf. It's a brand they know, they trust, they already have that image in their minds, in their hearts. Suddenly you put something new and it has no similarity. The thing that they recognize the most has disappeared. People don't recognize the packaging anymore. They don't even see the brand anymore. They don't believe what they see. And there's confusion. I'm looking for my favorite Tropicana orange with a straw. I don't see it. I can't find it. You know. And ultimately, what went wrong? The president of Tropicana North America actually came out to explain. They underestimated the deep emotional bond that their consumers had with the original packaging. What we didn't understand or what they didn't get was the passion this group have for the existing package and the existing visual image. When they tried to modernize, they tried to make it cleaner, they actually threw away what was the strongest part in the connection they had with the consumer. So they were trying to be very smart. They were trying to do what they thought was right, tried to be clever with the orange cap, but they forgot about the existing relationship. And they suffered from there. But what I'm trying to say is when you are communicating, bear in mind that the person you're communicating with has an emotional relationship with you or your brand or this thing that they're looking to find or buy. Okay. And if you don't meet that emotional need, you're not going to succeed at it. When someone buys expensive car brand or bag brand, very often it's not just about how well the car is designed and built, how the craftsmanship was perfectly executed and the calf leather is of the best quality. Very often it's also about the fact that they trust and like the brand, the fact that this brand is recognized and accepted by the people around them. So it's very heart versus head. When you look at advertising and communications, there are clearly, what we call head advertising and heart advertising. If you look at a lot of the brands when they advertise, there's a lot of rationale messaging in it. But when you look at a lot of the luxury brands, the images and the visual mood they try and create, they don't even try and explain why you should buy the brand, what is good about the brand. All they do is create an ambiance, a mood that this brand evokes. And then the message is, if this mood is what you want, if this lifestyle or this setting is what you want to associate with, then this is the brand for you. So very often in communication, bear in mind you're trying to talk to the heart and not just the head alone. Yeah. Just some examples. If I was trying to tell my wife I love her, or tell my girlfriend, marry me, please, there are very many ways, right? And sometimes when you're trying to get that reaction, talking to the head just doesn't work, right? If you're trying to be reasonable and say, look, we've been dating for more than 3 years already, let's time to get married. Or darling, let's apply BTO, Tampines Wrong. That's the typical joke that gets kicked out the window, right? Sometimes the bringing her to a jewelry shop, asking her to try a ring, or talking to the heart, say, let's go see the meteor shower, and then at the meteor shower, ask her to stay with you for the next 10 meteor showers to see it together. You know, so the same message sent a different way to understand what is the response you want. Okay.
David, sorry to interrupt you. I think you forgot to turn on your slides.
Sorry?
Your slides. I think you
Oh
forgot to
no,
share.
I'm sorry. So you guys have been missing it. Let me. Wait, okay. Apologies. Wait, why am I still showing this? Okay, hold on a second. Okay, are you all seeing my screen now? Where did I lose you in the screen? Did you all see?
I think slide number 8.
Okay, let me back up again. Okay. So let me repeat myself, because without the screen, you might not have gotten the main message. So we we talked about how when you want to communicate, it helps to understand what the other person is thinking about, what the person wants to hear, what the person wants to understand. And then when I talked about Tropicana, the before and after. Okay, so you see what I was talking about, the orange with the straw in it? This was the original packaging. And a lot of the consumers know the brand from this visual image, and they associate the 100% juice from this image, right? Whereas when they switched to the new packaging, and they changed the brand logo image from this to this, they tried to be clever, changing the cap from a normal cap to an orange cap that you squeeze like an orange. They actually lost sales. They lost their consumer who was looking for this and associated the brand and the pure orange juice with this image. Yeah, so this is a very good negative example of not just trying to be smart, but actually trying to be to talk to your audience based on what you know and understand they want to hear and like. Okay, so let me move on to the fourth hack. So when I say cut and craft, a lot of it is also when you've done step one, you know what message you want to send, the key headline message, the reasons to believe, and the call to action response you want. And you've drafted it out and you ask yourself, what does your audience really want to hear? What would convince your audience, right? And you've thought about how to appeal to your audience's emotional as well as rational needs, right? Then it comes to crafting. So as an example, today's headline, I wanted to share with you all that good communication is not only about language skills. It's about planning your message, understanding your audience, and crafting your message, right? But if I had just put as a headline for this session, good communication is not only about language skills. I'm not sure it would have been interesting for you, right? So I tried to craft it a little bit to be clearer. So the version 2 of the same message is clear and persuasive writing doesn't depend on having good English. Nah, a bit meh, right? In more detail, you don't need to have good English to communicate effectively and persuade your target audience. That sounds like a textbook already. So shorten. Don't need good English also can win over your target audience. Which then brings you to, don't need good English also can communicate effectively. And then a final touch, don't need good English also can say I love you. But you see how it's a continual refinement, polishing, crafting your message so that you get to a point where, oh, it communicates clearly, it resonates with the audience and attracts their attention and makes them curious to respond. In my case, what I really wanted to do is I wanted to tell you this message in a way that gets you curious, makes you want to attend, and hopefully then learn from this session, right? So hopefully my cutting and crafting has helped to achieve that. Okay. Some creative crafting tricks. Okay, I'm using my own writing here to give you an example because in a sense it's closest to my heart, is what I went through, right? So the parts that are highlighted in red are the parts that I really try to be careful about. If I had given you the name of the awards, if you're in the advertising business and you're in the advertising circle, you'd know what is the New York Art Directors Festival. You'd know what is the Design and Art Direction Awards, or the Hong Kong Spike Award, or the Singapore Gong Show, right? If I was writing this for the advertising industry, I'd actually say the New York festivals, DNAD, the Spikes and the Gong. But if I said that to you, you wouldn't know. So, right? So these awards are from the different parts of the world, only the ad people know it. Why did I choose, among all the work I did, to talk about carrier and cold storage? One's an aircon, one's a supermarket, but it has a nice little balance of carrier and cold storage. Durex and Kotex, one is for men, the other is for women. One is a contraceptive, the other is a hygiene. And then Guinness and Red Cross. One's black, one's red, one's alcohol, one's blood, right? So it creates a nice little twist and balance. I'd be very surprised if anyone can name what are these American, English, French, Southeast Asian, and Japanese agencies. Again, if I was writing for the ad agency business, my fellow advertising professionals, I'd say Ogilvy, Lintas, Publicis, the next big thing, and Dentsu, and they know where these agencies are from. But if I'm writing for the non-advertising business people, I write it this way. Kofu Catalyst, I chose that because you would know what these brands are, you would recognize it. Singapore Polytechnic, for those of you who have seen the name change from the old crest to the new SP in 2 letters, you would know what I'm talking about. I added Met Gong Li to keep it a bit interesting, curious, fell in love with Christy Chung, just to add a bit of light personality flavor in there, right? And to end it off, I put in thanks God very frequently. I'm blessed with a wonderful team because this keeps it light and friendly. So these are the little tips, right? Write in a way that your audience understands it. Make it personal and make it intriguing, attract curiosity, and add a bit of warmth for not just technical writing, but add a bit of human flavor to it. And these are the little touches you can add to make a writing more interesting, right? Some further creative crafting tricks, what we call alliteration, using C, creating clear, convincing communications, repeating that sequence of starting letters. Again, the little trick of adding a very rational thing, essential skill in any job, with a very personal and emotional thing, daily life and relationships. Something people can associate with, ordering a coffee, versus official things like getting residents to follow house rules, proposing a rental rate increase versus proposing marriage, the heart and the head, right? And these are little tricks. Okay, another writing skill, good language skills can help, like sauce on a steak. That's what we call a metaphor, right? But it makes the point that language skills are helpful, but they're not the essential. And then extending the metaphor a little bit further, the meat is the message, like sauce on a steak, but the meat is the message. And then intentionally, there are times when you don't want to write good English, when saying don't need good English and powderful England, or even using the modern dictionary instead of the traditional Queen's English, #writing hacks, to create a bit of a surprise and break in your writing. So these are little crafting tricks that writers use. So recap, and this is recapping the 5th part. Read it again and again and again, check and fine tune. Make sure that there are no spelling errors, make sure that there's no missed words, make sure that these are all what you want. So to recap, and this is something that whether you're doing a media interview, writing a press release, writing an application for a job or a scholarship, or asking your wife to marry you, these are the same writing hacks that will guide you in having a sharper, more convincing message. Think before you open your word. In other words, plan your message carefully, and think of your message in 3 parts: the headline key message, the reasons to believe, or the persuasion part, and then the call to action or the response you want that person to have. Okay, put on her shoes, which is, in other words, consider your message from your audience point of view, not from what you want to say, but what you want that person to hear and understand. Head or heart, address your audience, real interests and concerns, not just the rational, mental questions, but the emotional affinity connections. Then cut and craft, draft, edit, review, fine tune, choose your words, tweak your words, write in a way that attracts and engages. Read it again and again and again, and check as many times as you need. Craft it as many times as you need. The more important the message is, the more you want to check and fine tune. So that's it. Don't need good English, also can say I love you. 5 writing hacks that will help you to craft your communication to be clear, convincing, and effective. Questions, please.
All right. Thank you so much, David, for sharing such an uh, insightful insights of crafting and writing hacks. So maybe to start the ball rolling, for those who are not familiar with David, even after reading all this, David is a very seasoned veteran in the advertising community in Singapore. Perhaps you can share with the audience what are some of the more memorable campaigns that you've worked on, or some interesting stories you can share, because I'm sure there are plenty of stories that you have.
Oh, very many. Some of the interesting things I could share would be Marie France body line. When you think about a brand like Marie France body line, right, and they have they have officers and body contouring and weight management clinics, salons from Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, Hong Kong, Indonesia, and then they went into Middle East, right? You realize that the concept of beauty is different in every part of the world, and the concept of self-confidence is also different in other parts of the world, right? Strangely enough, when we did market studies to understand the Middle Eastern Arabian woman from Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Oman, it turned out to be extremely different from the Southeast Asian woman's concept of beauty. And that's why in a sense, when you recognize the brands like L'Oreal, when they market around the world, they've shifted from having decades ago commercials where a single spokesperson or brand champion is used around the world, to allowing each region to have their version of the same commercial with different, right? But the concept of beauty has also evolved with Dove, coming up very strongly with the concept of the real woman, real beauty, instead of your fashion glossy magazines concept of beauty. I see there was an interesting question from Jia Hong in the chat group. What if Tropicana had let the consumers know about the change in the brand design in advance? I think so to answer your question, Jia Hong, I think yes, if Tropicana had run more advertising, they did, okay? So they did run advertising with the new packaging showing in the advertising. But the question is, had they done more of it, had they would it have gotten the audience to transfer to the new packaging more successfully? I think the answer is, from my personal perspective, my personal judgment call is, the answer is no, it would not have helped. It may have reduced the impact, but I don't think it would have helped. Okay, customer loyalty, they're actually, in the science of customer relationships and customer loyalty, we break down the customer's relationship into 3 levels of loyalty, okay? One is what we call inertia, and the second is stickiness, and the third is true loyalty. Inertia is when a customer is so used to your brand, they are reluctant to change brands. If nothing changes, they won't change brands. Okay. So for example, I'm used to picking up this color of a packaging from the shelf. Okay. As long as I can see this color, as long as it looks like what I've been picking up all the time, from habit, from convenience, pure laziness, I will keep on picking that up, because it wasn't easy for me to decide what brand I like in the first place. Once I chose a brand I know I like, I'm not going to shift out of it until something changes. So that inertial thing, it's like I can walk down the same street every day. I can buy my yu char kway from the same store, and unless something changes, I'm not going to change, right? Because I've discovered over months or years that this is the one I like the most. So that is inertia. The other one is stickiness, where it's already a relationship I have, and I'm sticky with it. So for example, if that Yu Char Kway store, that uncle knows me by name, and he knows what I want every time I walk by your store, and he knows it's one Yu Char Kway and one Ham Chin Bang, right? So I'm just going to pick it up. I don't even have to tell him what I want. He creates a stickiness that makes it, and very often the stickiness comes from convenience, right? It comes from a physical habit, right? And then the third one is where it's loyalty, real loyalty. I've built a relationship with the brand. I trust it. I like it. And I love the brand to the point where even if they make a mistake, I will still forgive them and keep buying that brand. Okay, that's what we call the ultimate in brand loyalty, right? So in this case, what Tropicana didn't recognize was what are the elements that created the inertia and stickiness and loyalty. They didn't actually have the loyalty of their customers to keep on choosing their packaging despite the change. What they had was an inertia and a stickiness, that's habit, that I recognize this packaging, I recognize the orange with a straw. Once you take away that orange with a straw, I don't recognize it anymore. And it's broken my habit. You see what I'm saying? So from the signs of customer loyalty, what they didn't recognize is what was the important element in that stickiness. And if they had shifted the packaging, but still somewhere on it kept that orange with a straw, if they had modernized the image a little bit, sized it down a little bit, or in some way kept that orange with a straw on the packaging, they would have retained that stickiness. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes in a change, you cannot disregard your consumers' existing relationship in your change. It's the same as if I suddenly change the way I dress and suddenly the way I behave. My wife's not going to recognize me anymore, right? And she's going to wonder if something changed in my life, right? Okay. Shi Qi asks, why should I make seemingly trivial experiences intriguing for university? Okay. Now, so let me ask you this. For a university admission committee, what are they looking for in a potential candidate? Is it only your grades? Or they also want to know about your extracurricular, your volunteerism, your working experiences, and other things beyond your schoolwork and your grades? So if you want to address your admissions committee and tell them that you're an all-rounder, or that you have the emotional resilience to be able to go through a difficult university time and challenging, and you want to convince them that it's more than your grades alone, then would you want to share with them a little bit more about what you do outside the classroom, a little more about what interests you and what drives you as a person? I hope that answers your question. Okay. But you see what I've done. I've essentially put myself in the shoe of that admissions committee person. What is the questions going to be on their mind? What are they looking for? And then you address your communication to check that box for them. Yeah. Any other questions? how do you decide whether a product is worth marketing for? Okay, I'll tell you honestly, there have been times when I was asked to do an ad for products that I didn't believe in. Okay, how do you decide whether a product is worth marketing for? I think there have been times when we have asked clients, are you sure this is the right target audience for you? You know, if a client says, I've got this thing I want to sell and I want to sell it to males who are 30 to 50 years old, of a certain household income bracket, certain stage of life, certain demands. And there are times where you have to question the brief and say, hey, maybe that's the wrong target audience. Okay. Let me give you as an example. Here's the interesting part. When I was working for Ballantine's Whiskey, right? Ballantine's Whiskey at that stage was owned and managed by Allied Tomac, based in the UK, right? Their biggest market for Ballantine's Whiskey was actually Korea. It's actually Korea for the 17-year-old whiskey. And for the unaged Ballantine's Finest, the biggest market was actually Spain. And within Spain, the biggest part of it is Ibiza. And so you often have to ask, who is the target audience, right? And who is the right person to buy and aim your product at. And for very many of these products, you also have to ask yourself, what is the corporate social responsibility element? So for example, for Ballantine's Whiskey, we drew a line to say, never ever show an ad where someone is drinking alone, right? Because research shows that drinking alone was a first step towards alcoholism as a habit, you know, and never ever show someone who might look like they're underage drinking, right? So if you ask me, are there products that should not be marketed? Yes, there probably are. Would I turn down a marketing job if that's a product I think should not be marketed? The answer is yes. But for most products, it starts by asking yourself, who is the right and relevant audience, and what are the guidelines to properly market the product responsibly?
I think we can sum up these sessions with, we have the last few questions, but they're all pointing towards the same direction. So we have questions from Audrey, Tivona, and Pratana asking about what can you talk about when you're marketing yourself in unique application without sounding too fake or too prideful, marketing yourself to more opportunities. What should you say? What should you talk about in unique applications? So I guess in general, what are the things you can talk about yourself by trying to sound more authentic and more genuine that might interest the target audience?
Okay, I think the one thing to be very clear about, never fake a message, right? You'll be caught sooner or later. Okay, you cannot lie in communication, or you cannot paint a false picture. What we often say in public relations, especially in corporate communication or investor relations, is the facts cannot lie, but the story can speak. Okay, I'm not going to churn my face in this Zoom call, but I'll tilt more to my right because that's my slightly better side. You see the difference? Okay. So if you ask me, what can you do to make yourself more interesting to an admissions committee or to a potential employer, and all that is, start by improving yourself. Start by building a real story to tell, a real product to tell. Okay. And when you have identified what is the real story you can tell and the best product you can build in yourself, then what's the best way to show that story? Okay. So it starts with garnering experiences, capturing knowledge, and then having a story to tell before you can tell the story well. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Okay. Then to take the next question, related question, how do you pitch yourself, or how do you sell your story yourself to a potential employment opportunity or an admissions committee? Writing hack number 2 was to put on her shoe. And writing hack number 3 was head or heart. And what that means is put yourself in their shoes and ask yourself, what are they looking for? A lot of times when a selection committee for university admissions or a scholarship guide, they will tell you in their publicity what they're looking for, right? They're not just looking for someone with good grades. They're looking for someone with strength, determination, physical and emotional resilience to be able to see through. The last thing they want is someone to start and give up halfway, right? They want someone who will start and complete and succeed, right? So does that already begin to tell you it's not just about the grades, but it's also about the strength and the persistence and all that? Myself as an employer, when I'm looking for someone to join my team of marketeers in my current job, right? Job skills is one thing, life experiences is another, but fighting spirit, yeah, and openness to learning, continual learning, and willingness to listen and learn. So there's the what I call hard skills and soft skills. There's the aptitude, which is the knowledge and ability to learn, and the attitude, which is a desire to learn and achieve, right? So generally, I myself look for all-rounders. Yeah.
I hope that with that in mind, the students can apply all this knowledge and skills to good use. Once again, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank David for taking out his time to speak with us all.
Gerald, there's one question that I feel I need to answer. This is from Xiao. Xiao, I couldn't see your full name there, sorry, in the chat group, but Mr. Xiao, I think. You are wondering, is it really true that good English is not essential in convincing writing? Okay, so I want to clarify, okay, and be quite clear in this part. Of course, good language skills help, okay, and of course, good language skills can make your writing even more convincing, okay, and yes, if you can, through practice, through hard work, improve your language skills, you must do so, okay? Do not underrate that. But what I'm trying to say is this, that for those of us who have not been blessed with, good language skills or how it is, some of us are stronger with numbers, some of us are stronger with words, and some of us are not as practiced in English. Or for all you know, if you're going to apply for a university in China, we're not talking about English, we're talking about Chinese, and your Chinese is not as good and polished, right? But you still need to write in Chinese. So language skills is good and helpful, like steak on a sauce. But the starting point of communication that everyone, no matter which language you're using or how polished your language is, can practice is the ability to plan your message, understand your audience, and craft your message to address your audience. I think that's the important outtake from today's session. Yeah.
Okay. With that, we will sum up today's session. Thank you so much, David, and again for taking time out to speak with everyone here. I hope everybody has gained some insights on how to communicate better with your peers and also professionally. So with that in mind, I hope everybody have a good year-end holiday, and please stay tuned to our website and our Facebook for our next upcoming webinar sessions. And until then, I wish everyone happy holidays on behalf of the Scholarship Back team, and see you guys soon.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoy your holidays.